Hey everybody, Alan Schaefer at Custom Garden Solutions. In today's exciting episode, I'm going to share with you, well, exciting for you maybe, not so much for me, but in today's exciting episode, we're going to clean out the garden of all the weeds and debris so we can get started on growing some stuff. So let me give you a little background. At the end of April, we cleaned out the garden because we were leaving for the summer. Hopefully the last summer that I'll leave Phoenix. I'll be here year-round going forward. And what we did is we pulled all the plants and we laid them down in the garden. And then we covered them up with silage tarps and then weighed it down with those green row bags you see in the background over there. And that worked great. We kept the irrigation on in the areas where we had compost in a very limited manner so that the soil would stay wet and continue to live, and all the worms and other microorganisms would be intact when we came back. So now it's the end of October and we want to get things growing. So today I'm going to pull all the weeds out, clean up all the debris, and the big reveal at the end of this episode is going to be what kind of shape the soil is in underneath. So stay tuned. In order to appreciate how much work I have to do here, I'm just going to bring you on a little tour. We'll take a look at all the weeds. All right, so we'll go to the east side of the garden first. But as you can see, when you walk in, I've cleaned up this area here on the left, and that's carpet. And we'll talk about that later, but that's just the aisle. We didn't put carpet over any of the soil. And if you look, I've cleaned that up, but there's quite a bit of weeds up against the cinder blocks where the carpet met. And the weeds just basically grew there. They didn't grow down the middle, just where the carpet met the cinder blocks. So on this side, which is the white silage tarp, that's where we grew last year. That's basically one half of the garden, okay? And we put the silage tarp white side up, which is a little unusual, but when you're in Phoenix, we thought it would be better, and I think it worked out fine. We're gonna find out at the end of the episode. If you look down here, I had the silage tarp up over the cinder block. Worked out fine. But over here, where that didn't happen, the weeds started growing, and that's on the outside corner here. And then we're okay. Again, no weeds in the middle where the silage tarps are. These are row bags, by the way, right here. That's a row bag. So over here, we're fine. Some weeds there. Again, some weeds on the outside where the silage tarp didn't quite meet. Some of that's actually on the outside of the garden. And again, that's on the outside of the garden coming in, so the silage tarp worked fine. This area here is where we had a little bit of a leak in our irrigation, and it was getting much more water than we needed to. But again, this is not where the silage tarp is. It's on the outside aisle, kind of weaseling its way in. All right, that cooler there, medical cooler, that's because of the heat. That's where we put our controller and our timer for the irrigation system. All right, this other side, this is a back area where we just store things. We covered that with carpet. Again, we're okay, except over there where the carpet ended, started getting weeds. Same thing all the way around over there. Where we put silage tarp in here, again, this has no soil in it, so we put a black side up. But there's no problem here. Right? The silage tarp held it out. It's just that this got blown over. This was originally up like that. And then weeds grew. This middle bed did have some soil in it. Again, no weeds. There's weeds along the outside there, except for where the carpet met the cinder blocks. Again, same thing here. If I pull this back, you'll see. It's just in the bottom there. And then this last one, silage tarp backs that up. There's no soil in this, there's no compost yet. But if you look in the middle, no weeds. The silage tarp had it covered. It's just where the silage tarp met the cinder and on the outside. So without much further ado, I'll get to taking care of the weeds. Alright, so you get an idea that there's quite a few weeds. It's not a really pretty scene here, but it's to be expected. This side over here that I just showed you, that had no irrigation, no water, and yet the weeds still grew like crazy. Over there, where we had irrigation running, there was no weeds in the grow area. It was just on the outsides where the silage tarp didn't totally cover it. And there really was no way to cover it because there's cinder blocks on the outside, and I can cover it up to the cinder blocks, but I can't cover it from the cinder blocks to the fence. So we'll come up with a solution for that next year somehow. I'm not sure what we're going to do. I'm going to try to flame weed this. If you're not familiar with flame weeding, this might be interesting. Hopefully it doesn't start on fire and blow up my truck and kill me. I don't think it will. I've got water ready if it doesn't. And I'll use my Magna-torch flame weeder, and that might do it. Otherwise we're going to have to pull them by hand. I'm a little hesitant to pull these by hand. I did that over here, and there's just literally millions of little seeds. I worry those seeds are going to really create an issue when we start growing. We're going to have the weeds sprouting up all over the place. So we're going to try the flame weeder first. If that doesn't work, I'll pull it by hand, and let's get going. Right, so I got about half of this done, and we're going to need some new carpet because not only did the weeds burn, they were all dried out and went up like kindling, but the carpet burned a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to throw it out. It was going to be thrown out anyway, and we'll go from there. So I'll get busy on the second half of the garden. This is the important area. This is where we're going to be growing right away. I'm really curious to see what's underneath that silage tarp. I think the water may, the moisture level may be a little too high. I may have to leave the tarps off for a night or two and then come back and rake it up and smooth it out, and then we could plant. So without further ado, back to work. To everybody at home, if you're going to be doing flame weeding, make sure you have water available. I make sure the irrigation was on. I got a hose right there. So if I have anything happen that gets out of control, I can spray it down right away. And I parked my truck over there so it doesn't blow up. Although that would make for a very good episode. I think that might go viral. Should I blow up my truck? I don't think so. Hey, I just want to take a quick break. I'm almost done. But if you notice, I'm wearing some pretty heavy duty gloves. These are thick. These are very thick. Here's the reason why. Quick question. Where am I at? I'm in Arizona. Did you know in Arizona they have scorpions, rattlesnakes, and black widows? Okay? Not to mention a bunch of other stuff that is kind of creepy and crawly. And I don't see them too often. But this is a garden. Most of the people around here, gardens are nice and tidy and growing food. This one, the soil, I've got probably the best soil among the hundreds of people here. It's 100% compost. It's been amended. It's been covered with silage tarp. And when I came here, I noticed there were thousands of little tiny grasshoppers. Not the big grasshoppers I'm used to in Illinois, but little tiny ones. And you know the cute little gecko that you see on the commercials, Geico? I've seen about 20 of those. And seen 2 lizards. And as I'm reaching into these huge piles of weeds that are all dried out, but the soil underneath it's moist, and there's composting plants underneath from last season, I'm worried I'm going to reach in and a scorpion or a black widow or maybe a snake of some type might surprise me. So I came out with these heavy-duty black gloves. Yeah, and they work pretty good. So when I'm reaching in here for the row bags, wouldn't it be something if something jumps out now and I caught it on camera? As I reach out, as I'm pulling up these row bags, so I can peel back the silage tarp. I want to make sure that I don't reach into something that might harm me. Better safe than sorry, right? That's what I say. Much, much, much better. So I'm gonna pull back the rest of the silage tarp, and then we're gonna flame weed this, and we're gonna take a quick look at the soil. All right. This is about the end. I flame weeded the weeds from the entire garden, and it worked out pretty well. And at the same time, got rid of all my pyro needs for the next year or two. But you may be asking, hey Alan, why did you flame weed your weeds? Why didn't you just pull them like a normal person? Well, there's a little story here. Up until recently, and if you go back 2 episodes to Big New Adventure, or Big New Adventure, I think it was called, I talked all about how I bought a home here in Phoenix, and I'm going to be living here for the foreseeable future. But before that, I'd been what they called a snowbird, where what snowbirds do is they live in Arizona in the winter, and they go back to their homes in the summer, typically places where it's cold out in the winter. So for me, it was Illinois. And at the end of April, I got my snowbird on, and I was getting ready to go back to Illinois. So we closed down the garden. And we tried to do the best we could to cover everything up and get everything tied down for the summer so that when we came back in October, we'd be ready to go and we wouldn't be a nuisance to our fellow gardeners. Well, what happened is there was areas where weeds started growing, some of them 2, 3 feet, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet long, and somebody had sprayed them with vinegar and water. And I believe the mix, if you want to do this at home, is about 90% water, 10% vinegar. And it killed the weeds and it kept them from growing, which is great. And then they dried out and they were like tumbleweed. And when I came back and tried to pull them, there were thousands and thousands of weed seeds dropping. And I didn't want them to germinate and create problems the rest of the growing season. So then I came up with the bright idea of, it was a bright idea, of flame weeding. So I was trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone with the flame weeding. Kill the weeds, burn up the weed seeds. And it appears to have worked really well. The only place I really see seeds is where I tried to pull them right here, but everywhere else you don't see weed seeds. So mission accomplished. What I'm going to concentrate on next is the east side of the garden, side over here. It's really 1/2 of the garden. It's about 20 feet by 40 feet, and it's where we grew last year. It's basically one big raised bed that takes up about half of the garden. So at the end of April, when I snowbirded off to Illinois, before I left, my friend and I cut down all the plants, all the broccoli and cauliflower and chard and kale and spinach and lettuce and beets and carrots and everything we had growing. We cut it and we laid it out on top of the surface of the soil. And if there were big plants like the stems for the broccoli and the cauliflower, we cut them in smaller, more manageable pieces so that they would decompose also. We kept the irrigation, the drip irrigation in place, and I'll talk about drip irrigation in the future. And we covered the entire east side with silage tarp. Silage tarp is black on top, white on the bottom. But since it gets up into the mid, 115, 117 in the summer here in Arizona, rather than having the black side up, which you would in most cold weather climates, we put the white side up and covered the garden and placed row bags on top to hold down the silage tarp. So what I'm going to focus on next is just taking all the row bags off the silage tarp, pulling back the silage tarp, and then sharing with you what the soil looks like. Kind of exciting, kind of a mystery, kind of a treasure hunt. So let's get going. I'm Alan's evil twin brother, Alex. And you can tell the difference between us because I'm the one with the short hair. But seriously, I had to go get my hair cut. Had longer, freakish looking hair short time ago, and now I'm back. But I've flame weeded all the weeds from the garden. I've removed the silage tarp. So next thing we're gonna do is reveal how well the soil withstood 6 months of being under a tarp. Drum roll, please. Soil's in great shape. All right, so as you can see, the soil's just in fantastic shape. And what you're looking for is to be able to like make a snowball, and just with a little bit of pressure, it crumbles. All right, you want it to bond slightly, but not too much. So that's exactly what we're looking for. It's exactly what I hope for. So I am stoked. This looks awesome. Well, I bet you were just thrilled with the suspense in this episode about what's the soil gonna look like. Or maybe it was just me. Anyway, the next step is to get some compost. The soil has settled a couple inches, so I'm gonna get compost, I believe on 2 days from now, and we'll add it to the east side garden, the one big raised bed, and there's 2 raised beds on the west side that need to be completely filled with compost, and one that needs to be added on that we grew a little bit in last year. It just settled also a little bit. But before I do that, I'm going to do something called forking the garden. And to those of you who are no-till method gardeners, this is probably familiar. To those that you aren't, stay tuned for that episode. It's coming up soon. I'm Alan Schaefer at Custom Garden Solutions. Our channel is all about helping you grow herbs and vegetables and all kinds of cool garden stuff so that you can live a healthier and happier life. If you're new to our channel and you want to learn all about growing herbs and vegetables and all kinds of cool garden stuff, then start today by subscribing. And so you don't miss anything, hit the notification bell, because you never know what I am going to be talking about next. And here is the pepper. Whee! I'm a pyro. Welcome to the Pyro channel. Heavy duty black gloves. Yeah.